do custom pro tuners just really disable all safety parameters, or do they actually write it to be better, or do they just leave it there and just play with ignition timing, fueling, and boost?
It is all over the map. There's no such thing as a custom tuner that describes all custom tuners. I would say the vast majority of them are operating off of a kind of set of like aftermarket industry files that kind of tend to float around, and that's their starting point, just because they're working on maybe a VTEC Honda one day and an Audi the next day, and a who knows what the day after that. So they're not going to have years of research and development on these very niche ECUs and products and calibrations. Some will have more than others, but generally, if it's a like a one-man shop, it's going to be a very, very narrow scope and a very limited, time-wise amount of.
And there are good examples of this. I'd say the bigger companies who present themselves like 034 are going to do a better job with not only maintaining safety features but improving on them.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest issue is you have a factory safety feature or function that works with factory tuning. But when you changed all the tuning parameters, what's safe now has to also be recalibrated and programmed. That's something that we do. And so it's not like we're necessarily having to add a lot of safety systems. We're just making sure that the safety systems are calibrated with the ECU tune and that those are working in harmony. It's kind of like if you're setting up a bungee jumping event, and it's with a bunch of 100-pound people, and then you have certain safety built into the bungee cords that makes sure that a 100-pound person is going to be safe. But you get some 200-pound people doing bungee jumping, you're going to have to recalibrate those safety systems. You don't necessarily need new safety systems. You just need safety systems that account for that extra weight. And what we do is recalibrate the factory safety systems for the higher levels of boost and power. That's not something smaller or less experienced tuners are capable. If you want to see a really good example of this, we actually did a very detailed deep dive. It's called, what is it called? Our Jackal Fact Check
Like that.
video. And it's an hour and a half, 90 minutes of Nate and I actually going into their calibration and showing you how they've disabled factory safety systems or how they've incompetently failed to reprogram.
Yeah, and being in this industry and seeing a lot of the aftermarket marketplace where you can go and shop and buy like tuned files from various distributors, that is not uncommon to find something like that. It is incredible. It's far more common to find that kind of a file where you do have a mountain of safeties and switches turned off and limits just pushed to the moon. Some of it's on purpose to kind of point a tuner that's coming along like, hey, these are all pushed way out of whack. You're going to want to look at these when you get to calibrating it. Most don't. They just leave it because it's so far out of the way. It doesn't affect their tune. But it also removes a ton of, limiters and safeties and reasons that they were there. But yeah, like going in, just nuking a bunch of fault codes, raising limits beyond anything they could mathematically even hit, all kind of big red flags that they didn't put the time in or just kind of were shortcutting as much as they could.
As always, we'll state that nobody does it as good as we do at 034 when it comes to the performance and safety features. So that's what you get when you use us, and when you put your trust in 034, we spend the time to do that stuff. And in most cases, we're making safer tunes than it was on the factory tune.
Right.